Your fantasy drafts aren't wrapped up just yet, so we got to go over 6 and a little bit more of our favorite players to draft in fantasy football. It is the Audible, Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom, James Cook. Yeah, James Cook. Everything's fine now. Rewind a month ago or whatever, Sigmund. We're concerned. We're worried. What's going on? Well, now James Cook is there. He's ready to dominate. We know the Bills can and will feature him.
He is emerging from a tier of running backs like Kyron Williams, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker. And of course, Walker still has a lot of upside in the Clint Kubiak running game if he can stay on the field. But what I like about James Cook is all of the contract stuff is behind them. And there's no reason he can't reprise his touchdowns from last year. But I look at some of the injuries, Khalil Shakir nursing that high ankle sprain. You have Elijah Moore not exactly impressing. Dalton Kincaid's always banged up. We know when James Cook was originally drafted by the Bills, the headline was his receiving skills. So I think there's a lot more room for him to grow as a receiver in this offense. And they are telling us with this extension, he's a signature player in the offense. And he actually is the first running back, wide receiver, tight end drafted in this Bills offense, which is one of the best offenses in the league. And you can get him in the 4th round. So I think that you might see a drop off at running back after the top 25 or so. And we may look back and say, I have my strong running back in the 4th round, James Cook. After he signs Cease, you would expect there to be a bounce in his value. And there really wasn't that much of a response by the fantasy football market. He's still there in the 4th round as somebody who could easily finish as a top 10 running back.
Yeah, easily finish in that category. And certainly you want great pieces of great offenses. And that's why Jalen Hurts is next up on our list of favorite players to draft.
I've been beating the drum for Baker Mayfield, and Christian Wirfs and Chris Godwin will be ready sometime in October, probably. Losing Jalen McMillan hurts. But let's talk about Hurts. Again, you have the likelihood that this Eagles offense is going to have to pass more than they did last year when everything lined up perfectly. The tush push was not banned. In fact, now you have other teams talking about, well, maybe we're going to install a tush push. You also have the idea that Saquon Barkley, coming off of 480 something touches, number one, won't be as foundational in the offense and could break down. All those things tell me that Jalen Hurts is going to have to shoulder more of this offense. And remember, you had A.J. Brown missing time last year. You had Devontae Smith missing time last year. You had Dallas Goedert missing time. All these guys missed multiple games. If you can get better health out of the targets, more pass-happy, pass-friendly game scripts, you have Kevin Patullo, a new offensive coordinator. Here's what he's not going to do, I hope, for Eagles fans. Do exactly what they did last year, right? Which was really featuring the run. So I do think that there's a lot of different ways that Jalen Hurts can bounce back from what was a floor season. He was a top 6, top 7 quarterback last year, and a lot of things broke wrong in terms of fantasy for him. A lot of those things can break right. See, I think number 1 quarterback is in his range of outcomes.
Yeah, speaking of breaking right, things are breaking right for Ricky Pearsall finally. And we're here for it, Bloom, because, well, the 49ers need as much wide receiver help as they can get.
Yeah, this is a team that was scrounging around for Marquez Valdes-Scantling. It sounds like Russell Gage could play a big role for them week 1. We did have Kyle Shanahan saying, no, Juwan Jennings can want a new contract and be hurt. Those two things can happen at the same time. So I think you're going to look at George Kittle, who I didn't include George Kittle on the show because if you've been watching, you have to know how we feel about George Kittle on the show. But you also have Christian McCaffrey and you have Ricky Pearsall. So you have a very productive pass offense that is going to be focused at the beginning of the season, at least, on these 3 targets. And Ricky Pearsall, we could, at the end of September, see him as a top 10 fantasy wide receiver that you got in the 6th, 7th round. And the other thing that you have to really like about Pearsall is, again, last year he got shot and he still was productive by the end of the season. What can he do with a mostly healthy offseason? He missed a few days of practice at the beginning of camp. But since then, no news is good news. He's set up to be this team's number 1 wide receiver. And we know with the chemistry he's established with Brock Purdy, we should not limit the possibilities of how high he can get in fantasy football.
Even with Pearsall missing a couple of days of practice, that's still like 100% healthy in San Francisco
Yeah,
because
right.
of all of the injuries. When Russell Gage is going to be a big part of things, like, wow. All right. If you've listened to the show, you hear your love for George Kittle. We love and appreciate him so much, but also with Tucker Kraft there in
Yeah.
Green Bay. And speaking of banged up, I mean, for the love of God, I guess Luke Musgrave's just never going to be healthy. So Tucker Kraft, more opportunity.
Yeah, and we'll see if we see more to tight end. Actually, Musgrave had a good summer. The big issue now for the Packers. Why am I bringing up Tucker Kraft again? Everybody knows, just like they know. There are teams, plenty of teams actually, where I took Kittle and Kraft. And why? Why would I take Tucker Kraft even after I took George Kittle in the third or fourth round? Well, we already have seen, and I've built up this narrative that the Packers see him as a foundational piece in their offense. They want to feature him more. It won't take much more than an incremental increase in targets for him to get into the top 5 tight ends. Also, you have Isaiah Likely not on IR. So Mark Andrews' window without Likely is pretty small, maybe 2-3 weeks. TJ Hawkinson, Adam Thielen's back. Who's he going to take targets? When we were looking at TJ Hawkinson without Adam Thielen, we were thinking, okay, JJ McCarthy's really going to lean on TJ Hawkinson while Jordan Addison is suspended for the first 3 games. Now with Adam Thielen, who, by the way, has worked out with JJ McCarthy each of the last 2 off seasons. There's some foreshadowing for you. So now you look at that tier of tight ends after the top 4, and Tucker Kraft becomes even more attractive. He's had a tremendous summer. He's dominated in joint practices. But the last bit of information here is Jaden Reed. You kind of feel for Jaden Reed. Cease, you feel for a player who has a Jones fracture in his foot and says, I'm just going to play through it. And I want to be at practice. I want to be with my team. I want to play through it.
Good luck.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's the kind of spirit you want in life. But in fantasy football, that arrow is pointing down for Jaden Reed. And where does Jaden Reed do his damage? Middle of the field. Where is Tucker Kraft going to do his damage? Middle of the field. And Jaden Reed was also a player, remember, they had design touches for jet sweeps and things like that. He got some touches out of the backfield. Tucker Kraft is another guy that you just say, get the ball in his hands somehow, some way. Best tight end in the league after the catch, a bar none. So I think that there are even more reasons to like Tucker Kraft, a player that we loved going into the summer.
Yeah, and with Green Bay, who's the number 1 receiver?
Right.
Oh, nobody. It's Tucker Kraft. All right, the guy you can lean on, and the guy that they will lean on, a guy that gets a bump because of a Tim Patrick trade, and well, just because of his summer. It's rookie Isaac Teslaa. Been talking about him for a while. Saw him down at the Senior Bowl. You can take your drink. But now Isaac Teslaa ready for that 3rd spot. And Jameson, you better be healthy, or else this guy's just gonna take more.
Yeah, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. The point being that, and we didn't mention Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt as one of our favorite players to draft, because
I was
now
going to mention him at the end because he
and,
is.
and he is, but he's a 7th or 8th round pick. But
Right.
I'm going to mention Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt with Isaac Teslaa. We can throw in some other names too, like Travion Henderson is probably a good name here. Every year, one of our favorite practices in the summer is identifying the rookies that are showing us, and the beat writers will tell us, and the other players and coaches will tell us, sometimes even with these exact words, Cease, we don't know how good this player can be. We don't know. All we know is, so far, he's really exceeding expectations. You know who fell in this category 2 years ago? Puka Nacua.
Yep.
And if going into the season you would say, well, Puka Nacua is going to be a breakout player and it's rookie the 5th round. Come on. How's that going to happen? Look at the other players on the roster. But you're already seeing Isaac Teslaa, and this is where, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt applies here. They've already blown away expectations. So whatever you thought Isaac Teslaa was capable of coming out of Hillsdale and Arkansas, the Lions, look at them trading up to the top of the 3rd round for a player that nobody was even going to take on the 2nd day, who's got the last laugh. Now, Isaac Teslaa, every time he's been on the field during the preseason, has done something to wow everybody. And you see Tim Patrick getting traded. How much more of a signpost do you need for the universe to tell you, number one, he's going to get an opportunity to show what he can do, but why can't he continue to exceed expectations? Why can't he really turn this into a 3? I'm not saying to back off of Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had a great summer, as usual. I'm not saying back off of Jameson Williams, who's taken a step forward. Maybe the answer here is get in on Jared Goff, now that he has another vertical threat. And isn't it interesting to see how John Morton said, I want this offense to be more vertical. I want more explosive plays. And what have they added now? A 6'4" receiver who can win the air, who can beat press coverage, who can outrun NFL corners. This is exciting. So when we see the universe, the football gods telling us, hey, this guy is exceeding expectations as a rookie in his first camp, so much so that the team changed their plans, we need to pay attention.
Yeah, change their plans, and I'll throw in some more love for Bill. Old Krosky Merritt. It all worked up, get all pissed off because there's talk now out of Washington. The second best player on their team is JCM. I'm not going to say that's right, but I'm also just going to sit back and enjoy a nice cup of coffee and watch old Bill Krosky Merritt tear things up and get things done. Let's wrap this thing up. Although I do have one more player I want to get to, but let's wrap up Sean Tucker here as the final player to talk about favorite players to draft.
A really late round guy, last round guy, but Rachaad White, we still don't know about his injury. We know that the Bucs love Sean Tucker. And remember, he had 190 plus total yards last year in a game where he had, I think, like 16 touches down here in New Orleans. That's a short list of players that can have done that, period. And the Bucs say they see him as a starting quality running back in the NFL. By the way, dynasty leagues, just put a pin in that. Maybe it won't happen with the Bucs, but you have him coming in. He's going to play some sort of role. You have him as an injury upside player for Bucky Irving, but you also have him as a player that can show that he belongs in this offense even after Rachaad White is hurt. And Cecil, again, going all the way back to the first player we talked about, James Cook. Get good players in good offenses. And in the case of Sean Tucker, that applies, but you can get him in the last round.
Yeah, so you love that even more. The Dante Thornton thing.
Yeah.
And what he's done, again, speaking of like Isaac Teslaa or JCM, like, okay, it was that with Thornton, and then here comes Amari Cooper wearing number 19 again. Yeah, it's still going to be Dante Thornton. I mean, older players tend to be out there for a little bit longer. Not that I don't believe in Amari Cooper, but, well, Bloom, I kind of don't believe in Amari Cooper. Could be wrong, but Dante Thornton's still a player that I'll be picking up as people go, oh, Cooper's there.
And you should. Again, this was a player that as soon as he showed up in Las Vegas, the other players were saying, whoa, hey, this dude's like 6'4" and is one of the fastest guys on the team. And no, he's not just a 9-route guy. No, he's not just posts and 9 routes and just have him run downfield. That's all he can do. He's showing that he actually can master more of the route tree in his first training camp. And you're right to bring up Amari Cooper because it gives us an opportunity to dispel a fantasy football myth, right? Oh, no, they brought in Amari Cooper. Well, if Dante Thornton can't hold off a 1 foot in the grave Amari Cooper, he wasn't going to break out this year anyway. Doesn't matter whether they got Amari Cooper. And that's not a sign necessarily that they're not they don't believe in Amari Cooper. They only gave, Thornton, they only gave Cooper like $3 million. Okay, this wasn't one of those situations where it's like, oh my gosh, Keenan Allen got like $8 million from the Chargers, just as far as like where they were with like, well, we've got young receivers, we need some more veteran experience. I think Amari Cooper is more like an emergency insurance. Hey, if Dante Thornton is not ready once the lights go on, they have someone with some experience and maybe a veteran presence in that room, especially since Jacoby Myers is a little bit malcontent right now with his contract situation. So Dante Thornton, much like Isaac Teslaa, when you have that kind of size, speed, athleticism combo, we can find out right away in week 1. And it's going to be a great matchup against New England and those long corners, Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis. So if Dante Thornton can beat those guys, chances are he's going to be a player we're talking about a lot more this year.
Chances are you'll like having him on your fantasy team. Who are your favorite players to draft? Let us know in the comment section below. We certainly appreciate you all the time. And of course, now with the regular season right here, our regular cluster of shows is coming to you. And yes, even the Sunday Night Live will have Tuesday as voted on by our Audible followers on Twitter. Tuesday is going to be our live waiver wire show. We'll have our preview shows on Wednesday and Thursday, of course, on the couch there as well. What is that? 6 shows during the week?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. So we've got it here for you on our Audible channel. Of course, Bob Harris doing his thing with the news updates here on YouTube as well. And Thursday night live. It's Matt Waldman, everybody. So yes, more of the Audible channel is what you want. We've got it for you. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. He's Sigmund Bloom. Follow him on all the socials at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying, thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty?